Hello world, it's Birdo Prey 5. I wanted to catch you up on Star Trek Lower Decks. Everything we know so far. Star Trek Lower Decks is going to be an animated Star Trek series on CBS All Access. This is going to be different from the animated series that is going to be appearing on Nickelodeon. The Nickelodeon series is geared towards kids. This one is not, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So Star Trek Lower Decks, this is the artwork. Now all of this stuff was released yesterday at their Comic-Con panel in San Diego. So let me just go through it real quick. I mean, you can watch the Comic-Con video. I will put the link in the description, but let me get you guys updated on Lower Decks. So first, Lower Decks takes place, it starts off in the year 2380. Now 2380 is 1 year after the events of Star Trek Nemesis. That is 2 years after the return of Star Trek Voyager in 2378. Voyager returned home. By 2379, Captain Janeway had already become Admiral Janeway. And now in 2380, Lower Decks is going to take place, which I actually like. I think that's probably the best place to start a new Trek series. It is newer, but it is still familiar. Okay, we don't have to worry about breaking much canon, but we can do anything we want, or they can do anything they want, for the most part. Now, what's already in canon is that in 2387, 7 years, coincidence, maybe, 7 years after the start of Lower Decks is what they call on this timeline the temporal anomaly, aka the destruction of Romulus, which of course sets off the JJ timeline. Now, Star Trek Picard, if everything is to be believed, is going to be taking place around 2399, so somewhere towards the very end of this particular timeline. But let's not get too caught up in timelines. We just need to know that Lower Decks is in 2380, right about here in this timeline. So there's going to be 4 main cast members, and Lower Decks, like the name suggests, is going to be about the ensigns, the bottom people on a starship, not the top brass, not the bridge crew, but these are the everyday Starfleet people that make the ship run. So we've got a little bit of background on our 4 main cast members. The first one is a human, Ensign Mariner, voiced by Tawny Newsome. Now, what we know about Ensign Mariner is that she's kind of a rebel. That's probably why she's a human holding a Klingon bat'leth. She's been demoted multiple times. I get the feeling she's kind of like a Tom Paris character, although Tom Paris eventually grew up, and Ensign Mariner appears not to. She does not do things by the book. It's a miracle she's still in Starfleet. From what I saw at the panel. I'm paraphrasing. The next person, voiced by Jack Quaid of SNL fame, is Ensign Boiler. I have to say Boiler. That's the best I can do with that name. Now, Ensign Boiler is, by all accounts, the opposite of Ensign Mariner. He's very proper, very by the book. He really wants to be a captain, and as they explained it in the Comic-Con panel, he's the type of guy who would ace the written portion of the driving exam, but completely fail when it came to actually driving the car. So I think we all know people like that. I think, to some extent, Barclay was supposed to be this type of character. In fact, they said that they actually call this guy, his nickname in the show is Clutch, because he's always clutching at his chest, and so he needs some help. Okay, he's very book smart, but he is, street stupid, if you want to say. He needs help. Also, maybe a bit Wesley Crusher-ish, in that Wesley was very book smart, but not as apt when it came to actually commanding and doing things. Although Wesley did pull off a number of miracles to save the Enterprise. So just partially. Now, this guy, Eugene Corrado as Ensign Rutherford. I mean, the first time I just saw his picture, knowing nothing about him, I said, oh, he's half of Geordie LaForge. Because, listen, there's obvious similarity. He's an African-American man, and he's got half of a visor. And he's got a tricorder, so he's got half of a visor. It's like, oh, it's half Geordie. But it turns out that's actually pretty close, because he is indeed an engineer. In fact, they compared him to Geordie. They said, like Geordie, he's a great engineer. But unlike Geordie, he doesn't solve all the problems by the end of the episode. The other thing about Ensign Rutherford is that this cyborg implant, as they called it, and now that I see it, it's one eye, an ear, and part of his head. So unfortunately, he was probably in some type of accident. Ensign Rutherford just got this cyborg implant, and he's still trying to figure out how it works. So according to them, it's going to be like when you get a new cell phone, and you're not sure what you have to do to get to places. So he's like, God, you have to swipe down, and there's gonna be laughs, apparently, as he tries to figure out and cope with his new cyborg implant. So that is Ensign Rutherford, the aspiring engineer. Now we got Noelle Wells as Ensign Tandy. And as you can see from her skin color, she does not appear human. If she is human, I would say she's irradiated. Apparently, it is her first day on the ship. At the first episode of Lower Decks is going to be her first day on the ship. She's in blue. She works in the med bay. I'm not sure if she's technically a doctor or a doctor in training, but she is just so thrilled to be there. She grew up loving everything Starfleet. Starfleet's what she wanted to do with her life. Every little thing she does is amazing to her, even when it's cataloging, really crappy alien diseases. She's super enthusiastic. To me, it sounds a lot like she's Tilly. She's their Tilly. But she loves dealing with alien diseases. So that is Ensign Tandy. And those are the 4 main Lower Deck characters. However, there are also 4 of the bridge crew. And they are in the show, but they are not the focus of the show. But they need to be there because this is a real functioning starship. So we have first Lieutenant Shax. That's this big guy here on the left. He's actually Bajoran. And you can see he does have the Bajoran earring in his ear. It's not the most detailed, but it is there. He looks like no Bajoran I've ever seen, but they describe him as a big, muscly Bajoran who wants to eject the warp core all the time. And that is a quote from the Comic-Con panel. Next, we have Captain Freeman, this woman, who is a stoic and ethically bound, I would say kind of typical, as they said, awesome Starfleet captain. So she's basically another Picard, or I'm not sure if I would say Sisko was as ethically bound, but whatever. She's basically a Picard type, a Kirk type. She has high morals, and she's a good captain. So that, we do not have a failing captain. We have a great captain, or a good captain, best captain she can be for the ship she has. Now this guy here, Commander Ransom, I looked at him and I said, oh, it's Commander Riker in animation form. And again, I was mostly right. It turns out that Commander Ransom is in fact described to be a lot like Commander Riker, except they said it would be like if Commander Riker was given a little speed and a little less shame. They also described him as a Californian Commander Riker. Because, right, Commander Riker was from Alaska in Star Trek Next Generation. But this would be like Commander Riker with a California attitude. Which I don't understand. I don't understand what it means. In fact, we get some Hollywood, California arrogance a little bit later. Let me keep going. Finally, and most notably perhaps, we've got Dr. Tanner. Dr. Tanner is a cat. Well, to be more specific, a Cation. Like, what is a Cation? And you might remember that picture of a cat if you've ever seen Star Trek the Animated Series even once. It would probably stick with you. What is a Cation? A Cation is in fact an alien that has existed since the animated series. Here we go. Here was the first Cation that we saw in Star Trek the Animated Series, and I mean we saw loosely, since I doubt even most Star Trek fans have watched the animated series in full. And this was what a Cation looked like in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. It was one of the aliens they threw in that was very forgettable. So this is a Cation, and in fact, the creator of Lower Decks does say that they go back and they take a lot of the animated series weird aliens, and he brings them back in this show. Now, one of the things about the animated series was great was that you could make much weirder aliens without it costing any more money. So, you know what? That's probably fine. I'll be honest. I was never a fan of the Cations, neither in the animated series nor here, but I'll give it a chance. And I don't know, some of the weird aliens, I'm afraid they get a little bit cartoony, but I guess it is a cartoon. So here, what do we know about the bridge crew? Shax is the muscly Bajoran, I said that. Freeman is stoic and ethically bound. Commander Random, yes, the hunky, he also said he's a hunky guy, the California Riker. Oh, and our cat, Dr. Tanner, is very bad at talking to people, but very good at solving sci-fi space mysteries. Again, that is a quote. So to me, she's also the chief medical officer. So to me, that's basically like saying Dr. House, right? Dr. House, not so good with people, but very good at being a doctor. And so that is our bridge crew. And now, what do we know about the ship? Well, it is a brand new class of starship, not one we've ever seen before. It is actually called the California class. And this is what makes me start to think that there just might be a little too much Hollywood arrogance going on in this show. We have no idea what the California class starship looks like as of yet. They did not release a photo. What they did release was a picture of the holodeck. So the ship does have a holodeck, which raises a couple of questions. But they say that this holodeck is broken all the time. And I guess it's one of the sources of comedy in this show. Speaking about sources of comedy for the show, the creator says that there's going to be jokes in there for both fans and non-fans. An example was given, like, if you're a fan and you know about Odo's bucket, that there might be a joke there that you would get that most people wouldn't. But there's also going to be plenty of jokes for new people. As to what the California class actually looks like, all we know is that it is not as big as most starships. They said that it was a smaller ship that really does more support. It is a support role of the larger ships, like an Intrepid or a Galaxy class or an Ambassador. So this is going to be a much smaller ship. Now, I was thinking like the Equinox from Star Trek Voyager. The Equinox appeared to be a smaller starship, but of course, the Equinox had no holodeck. Maybe the holodeck technology got better since Voyager. They could start putting holodecks on even smaller starships. It's possible. I suppose that's the easiest explanation. But I'm thinking we're going to be looking at like an Equinox-sized vessel, shape to be determined. As for the animation style, it's going to be much like Rick and Morty. Now, some people have told me, hey, look at these people, and then look up a project called Star Trek Final Frontier. Now, Final Frontier is not, well, besides being the name of the 5th movie, Final Frontier was a animation project conceived of in 2005 when Star Trek Enterprise had just ended, a year after Star Trek Enterprise had just ended. And these were professional animators who donated their time to put together what they hoped to be a true Star Trek series, hoping it would get picked up. And it did not. That said, they did put a lot of time and effort into characters, into backstories, and we've got some pictures, we've got some scripts. If you're interested, go to StarTrekFF.com. You can read up about Star Trek Final Frontier. Unfortunately, I believe the ship has probably sailed for Final Frontier. And again, some people are saying, look at this animation style, compare it to what we're getting. I'll be honest, I don't see that much of a resemblance. I mean, okay, this guy's big and muscly, is that a word? Muscly. And this guy's kind of it. Okay, maybe they're closer than, say, South Park versus The Simpsons, but I wouldn't say the animation style is stolen or anything like that. Now, one last thing about the ship. We don't know what it looks like, but they did tell us the name. And the name of the ship is the USS Cerritos. And I can't really explain it, but let me say, when they said this at Comic-Con, they said it several times, like they were waiting for the audience to laugh. Like the audience should know what the Cerritos was. And they said it, they said it's the Cerritos. The Cerritos. The Cerritos. And it's almost like they were saying, don't you get it? They didn't say that. But the audience like, okay, Cerritos, yay. But they didn't laugh. They didn't find it funny because nobody knows what the hell the Cerritos is. Now, granted, this was in San Diego, but the majority of people in the audience were probably tourists. They don't know California. I didn't know what the hell Cerritos was, and I used to work half the time in San Diego. Cerritos turns out to be a very affluent neighborhood of Los Angeles. Big surprise. So yeah, this is Los Angeles, and this is Cerritos. I guess if you are a Hollywood person, you probably know what Cerritos is all about. Maybe there's a joke there. I don't get it. I suspect most people will not. But yes, it's the USS Cerritos California class. So maybe all of the California class, and then we got free advertisements for a Subway or a Subs market in Cerritos. Maybe all of the California classes are named after cities in California. I suppose that would be fine. I'm curious. I can't wait to see what the Cerritos looks like. The name is fine. I don't mind the name. I mean, names are good. They don't all have to be epic names. But I was a little put off by what I would consider just Hollywood arrogance that your audience is going to immediately know Cerritos is a town in California, or anything about it for that matter. Anyway, so this is just our overview of Lower Decks. It's a little funny because they asked Alex Kurtzman, why animated, and Alex Kurtzman's answer was that the animated series, this is a quote, "The animated series was an incredible fan favorite." Now, listen, I've been a Star Trek fan my entire life. The original series, Next Gen, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, all amazing shows. Okay, I mean, there are definitely my favorites and less favorites, but I would watch any of them over just about any other TV series, given the choice. Certainly, if there were new episodes, they would beat me. I would be watching them today over anything else on TV, including the Super Bowl. But even I usually just forget the animated series ever existed. Yes, it existed. For a long time, it wasn't considered canon. And it really only became canon when they needed to use a holodeck in Star Trek Discovery. So then they very quickly tried to make it canon. The animated series is forgettable, and yes, it's a good show, and if you're a true Trek fan, of course you're going to like the animated series. But can you really consider it a fan favorite? I would venture to guess if you polled 90% of Star Trek fans, probably 90% haven't seen it in full. Probably 60% haven't seen it at all, and probably 20% don't even know it exists. So, any other Star Trek, from TNG, you could say, oh, TNG was a fan favorite for sure. The original series, a fan favorite for sure. Deep Space Nine, even today, you could call it a fan favorite today in 2019, because it is. I say, sure, Deep Space Nine was a fan favorite. You could call Voyager a fan favorite, though it would be a stretch. Okay, you probably can't call Enterprise a fan favorite, even though I personally like Enterprise a lot. That would be a stretch. But calling the animated series a fan favorite, even a bigger stretch. So then we get the question, and it's a legit question, is who is Lower Decks aimed for? Because during the discussion, they talked about, in fact, Alex Kurtzman said, well, we're trying to get younger viewers. Okay, he says that because Star Trek, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but many of these are his words. Star Trek is all about diversity and good things, and we need kids to learn that at as young an age as possible. So he says the animation will get more kids involved at a younger age so that he can, quote unquote, help change the world. Basically, brainwash. Which is fine, because I'm not having a problem about brainwashing children by showing them quality shows that show you the best way to act, how we have an idealistic future, and how we hope people 300-400 years in the future will act. That is fine. That was Star Trek I grew up on. I can get behind that. But I watched original series Star Trek and Next Gen as a kid myself. Okay? There wasn't any younger age I could have been into Star Trek. The fact that it's not animated doesn't stop kids from watching it. Especially not today. It was never a reason. The fact that this one will be animated is certainly not going to be a particularly good reason to let somebody watch it. I mean, I would have to see what it's like. It's a half-hour comedy. So hopefully they are not dropping F-bombs and showing, Klingon private parts like they do on Star Trek Discovery. Star Trek Discovery is not a kid's show. Every other Star Trek that ever existed, you could show to kids. I wouldn't mind. I could have an 8-year-old sit next to me and watch Deep Space Nine or Enterprise or Voyager or TNG or TOS and be completely comfortable with that. I can't sit next to an 8-year-old and show them Star Trek Discovery without feeling like I'd be arrested, because I should be. Because Star Trek Discovery is an adult show. So they asked, who are you trying to get to with this show? And we get a great answer. Well, Kurtzman says kids. And then I think somebody realized that Kurtzman had confused this series with the Nickelodeon series. And someone else stepped in and says, well, we're looking to reach out to both existing Star Trek fans, people who love Star Trek. Well, that's good. You want people who love Star Trek to watch the show. And people who don't watch Star Trek. We want them to watch the show too, because this can be their way into Star Trek. So basically, you're seeking out everybody, anybody of any age. So why even answer the question? Just say everybody. We want everybody to watch. So whether you love Star Trek or you don't know about Star Trek, or you're young or you're old, everybody should watch this show according to the people behind it. And I would say the same thing if I was making a new show, but I would be honest. If they say, who do you want to watch this show? I'd say everybody. Everybody and their mother and their grandmother and their kids. Okay, if your grandma doesn't know how to change the channel, go to her house, put it on her TV, and just leave it on. That's what I would tell them. I'd be honest. So that's it. Honestly, I'm looking forward to Lower Decks. I'm curious to see how it goes. They promise. Now, promises are promises, but the creator promises, and I feel like I saw him on the panel. I believe he is a Star Trek fan, true and true. He knew about things like Odo's bucket and little things that most people, like I'm sure Alex Kurtzman, had no idea what that was until it was explained to him. And I'm sure he's a fan, and the fact they are setting this right after Voyager and Nemesis in 2380, that's all good. That's all good stuff. The animation style, it's not my favorite, I'll be honest, but it's not my worst. It's not the worst I could think of. And I hope it goes well. I do. I truly hope it goes well. I am probably looking forward to this. Certainly more than Season 3 of Discovery. And at least as much as Star Trek Picard at this point. So here's hoping Lower Decks is a great series. And thank you guys so much for watching. Please comment. Let me know what you think about Lower Decks. I want to know. If I missed something, again, please let me know. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you disliked the video, please dislike it. But just leave me a comment. Hey, why? What could I do better? What did I suck at? I want to know. I'm still learning this. It would be a big help. Be honest, and thank you so much. Qapla. Take care. Thank you all for watching my video. Please remember to comment, like, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that bell icon. Without it, you won't get notifications of new videos. Check out BirdOPrey5.com, the new home of everything Bird O' Prey 5 on the web. You can also check out my forum at juot.net. I'm also on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, and Gab. If you'd like to make a donation, check out paypal.me/BirdOPrey5 or on BirdOPrey5.com. Take care.